Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Kashif Booth podcast. If you're new here, each week I sit down with the guest and we discuss their career so far, the highs and lows, and what's next for them. Today's guest is Tyler Dunnigan. He is the CEO and founder of TurnServe. Welcome to the show, Tyler.
Thanks so much for having me. Like I said before we started this, I love your name. Love the pod. Can't wait to get into this with you.
Amazing. It's so great to connect with you. And, I have your whole bio here. I have it here and I'm going to read it out so that everyone knows who you are and how they should get to know you right now. Okay.
All right.
So
Let's see how my
let's
team
get to
did.
this.
Let's see.
Yes. Okay, you should be proud. So Tyler is a seasoned entrepreneur who has built and scaled multiple seven-figure companies, including TurnServe, a platform revolutionizing property turnover processes for the housing industry. His portfolio features brands like apartmentpainters.com, liquidliner.com, and apartmentflooring.com, each designed to solve specific operational challenges in single family and multi-family housing. So tell me about you, Tyler. What made you want to launch TurnServe? Because what you're doing to me is very, very important, especially for not only especially like single household families, but also multi-home families, because, this economy is very tough.
Yeah.
So what made you want to start this and help people like that?
So my background was actually in single family to start. So single family real estate, and I was flipping houses. I had a few investors. I wanted what was next because I started every single one of my days at the store or at a project house. And to be honest, like it was a boring career. It was cool. Like I had a team, I was flipping houses and investing in them and all those things. But to me, just like I wasn't quite checking the boxes. I don't think I made as much of an impact as I thought that I would be able to in that space. And everything took about 3 times longer. Nothing was quick. And so it was cool. But to me, that was just an introduction. Fast forward, I talked to a mentor and they recommended I look at multifamily. So same concept, just a little bit larger. And I did. The only issue was I didn't really know much about it. And so I got involved in the multifamily space in corporate America. And I learned everything from maintenance to leasing, you name it. And long story short, I started off consulting on the side with them just to learn it. And I did very well. I liked it a lot. I was still flipping houses on the side. And the owner that I was consulting for came to me and said, "Hey, I'm firing the third party management company. Thanks for everything." And I was like, "Oh, that's it. Like that's my gig in corporate America. It's over." And then he followed that up immediately and he says, "No, I'm firing that company, but I want you to run my company." And I said, "Oh, fascinating." And so I was like, I'll take a swing at this. And so now my introduction to multifamily, I was involved for a couple of years at that point. It went from learning the ins and outs and 101s to literally setting up a company for somebody and trying to, get it sellable, if that makes sense. And I did very well. I learned a lot, in my span there. But when I was doing that work in multifamily in corporate America, I did everything to the best of my ability, like from leasing ops to maintenance, to you name it, and everything was working well. But the common issue I kept on having was I couldn't find enough good contractors or suppliers to meet my scale needs because I was managing around $250 million in assets, and that's a lot of doors, that's a lot of properties, and you could find a few smaller, like really good mom and pop providers, but you can't. There wasn't really a national enterprise level solution that I didn't have to call 50 of these suppliers to make sense. And I was like, you know what? Like I keep on striking out. I can't find one person to do this for me. They're 2 months out. I need something 2 days out, or there's only one of them, and I have like 800 apartments to flip this season. Like, and I just kept on like hitting my head against the wall, and I was striking out. So what I did was I took my house flipping crew and I said, "Hey, you guys are going to be a hybrid maintenance, crew, and you're going to flip apartments for me." And I talked to the owner that I was working for, and I said, "Hey, like, I can't find the solution. Are you okay if I just do it? Like, I'll whatever the invoices that are currently being paid, that's exactly what I'll charge. You set the price." Like, I didn't care at that point. I just wanted them done, and he wanted them done as well. Like, he didn't really care. And so I just started my company initially to serve a need that I had in multifamily because I couldn't find it. Fast forward, it did all of my services for me and it worked very well. Then I started doing it for some of my friends that were in the space because they have the same struggles, and then a few more. Then I came came to this crossroads and I said, you know what? This works at scale. It solves a huge need, and I'm very good at running it because I'm used to flipping houses. These apartments are small, square, same colors. I could figure this stuff out all day long. And so essentially, I went back to the owner and I said, hey, like, I got your portfolio up. It's sellable. Like, I improved all your costs, you name it. And I was like, I really want to try this in full-time I would leave corporate America and try my company full-time. And he says, yeah, hey, that's great. Like, let's do it. Like, go for it. And I did. I left corporate America. I officially left in like 2019, 2020, give or
Oh,
take.
mhm,
And I went into my company Turn Serve full time. And it started off just, doing a few services for multifamily property managers, flipping apartments, to adding on brands and products and software. And next thing you know, here we are. So it's been a whirlwind, but that's what led me to the space and kind of like
mhm.
my journey to this point so far.
I love that. It's so inspiring to hear your journey as well. And I think a really important thing that you said was about how you kind of submerged yourself and immersed yourself within a new space. Because I think sometimes people get stuck in, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm comfortable, but building success and getting to where you want to be is about evolving and learning and understanding different industries, because now if you hadn't done this before, you'd probably still be in corporate America working for somebody else, but now you have your own business. And that's what I liked about your journey. And it's so funny that you've really gone into detail about flipping apartments and stuff like that, because you see a lot of the reality TV shows like on HGTV, flip or flop and flipping loads of houses, and people just see the big profit in houses, but you've really kind of honed in on apartments. So for people who are flipping houses and not have even thought about flipping apartments, what would you say are the advantages of doing an apartment instead?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to approach. Here's the high level thing. So a house,
Hmm.
right? It could be you can make a couple $100,000, and that sounds great. Don't get me wrong. But there's so many variables in that business. There's got to be a lot of things that go right, and it's a full time job for somebody. You are legitimately a project manager, a financier, a marketer. You're that all the time, and unless you find an exceptional person to come in and help you run it, you're going to be working 90 hours a week just to do one house at a time. And the reality of it is you have no control over who buys the house from you, how much they buy it for. You could do all you can for it, but it's really subjective, and you got to hope that it goes as planned. And so for me, it was just getting burnt out, because there's so many variables in that space. You can't really build SOPs around it, and you can't really delegate it. And so
Hmm.
that's the one side. What the biggest difference with apartments is, not a lot of people realize this. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic. I'm not necessarily purchasing these and flipping them and selling them. I'm working with management companies and flipping the apartments for them. But half of all renters move every single year, and there's more renters than homeowners in the world. And so for reference there, if you see a multifamily apartment complex, there's probably 300 apartment units in that space. That means 150 of those needs flipped every single year like clockwork. And the extra kicker is that one building is probably managed by a group that manages 20 more buildings just like it. So if you get one good relationship, you will be the busiest firm ever. And so
Hmm.
some of the other big differences are apartments are all very uniform. There's a couple different layouts. They're all anywhere from 600 up to maybe 1,500 square feet on average. One or two colors tops. All the ceilings are the same height within reason. The floors are the same. Almost everything is the same. There's some variance amongst like the floor plans and luxury versus affordable. Don't get me wrong. But if you onboard one property, you could send crews there time and time again, and you know exactly what they need to do the job. And so for me, the initial hurdle is onboarding that one property and spelling out the entire, here's the colors, here's the floors, here's this. I build that once, and then I have a lead crew that goes and follows that form the entire time. So the main differences there is on single family, because I wasn't able to delegate, and there's people that can, and kudos to them. Like, I was still learning. I was early 20s when I was doing that, so I was still developing as a manager. There's people that can delegate. I could not delegate in single family because I had no control over what variables were popping up. And I was trading my time, a lot of it, for money, and it wasn't guaranteed money. It was hoping that it would work. And then on the other hand, with multifamily, I was building processes and bursts and building expertise through systems versus trying to find an expert to come work for me that wasn't already doing it on their own. And so really it's one is built for scale and to replicate, and it's everywhere in the world because there's a multifamily complex or a rent back community in every single location on the globe. Versus in single family, sure, there's houses everywhere, but it's very specific. There's certain neighborhoods, depending on like price points, and there's just a lot of like what ifs and has to haves on the one side versus on multifamily. There's a shortage, there's a massive need, and it's predictable and it's scalable. It has all of the features that you look at a market and say, hey, I want to get into this one because it needs updated. Those are the highest level, biggest differences, so to say.
Uh-huh.
So it's completely two different worlds.
Uh-huh. And it sounds like from what you're saying that there is a quicker turnover with multifamily, but also a bigger profit.
Yeah.
Is
So
that what you're saying?
some unit economics. So on the housing side, I'm just going to make this up. You buy a house for 100, you put 50 into it, and you hope that you can sell it for 200. After
Mhm.
fees and taxes, etc., you can make a decent profit. However, that house takes 3 months, 4 months, if you're really good, like, and that's if everything goes as planned and weather holds up. So the totals there are obviously like they're high. Now on multifamily, the average ticket, average cost of a turnover every single year for an apartment is, depending on the asset type, anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. And that you say like, hey, am I going to chase 200 or 5,000? Well, you got to break it down even further. One takes 4 months, one takes 1 or 2 days, and one is scalable. You can build systems around. The other, you can, but you can't. Like people can do it, but it's very much so. It's you normally see like partners doing it together or families that are doing that together because it's so much communication and expertise and whatnot. Whereas multifamily, you can truly build a business versus a job, and so the totals are definitely different. And most people struggle with multifamily doing services because they come from a world of residential and they try to instill the same concepts. They'll go look at an apartment and they'll want to do a bid, and that bid takes a week, and then they have to schedule it and they're 3 weeks out. Multifamily moves in matters of days versus weeks or months like most people are used to. So unless you're kind of built for it and speak the language and understand what the client needs, there's a big delta there. Then probably the last big difference is, on the housing side, sure, like if you can make tens of thousands of dollars in profit or equity or whatever you want, and that's cool. People do it. There's a lot of wealthy people that made their money doing that. So I'm not knocking it. It's just my approach. I hated how
Mhm.
slow that was. And for reference, you can make negative money doing that, or you could double your money doing that. Whereas on the multifamily side, you're going to make a steady 20 to 55% margins over and over and over again. And then you could replicate yourself, right? Like I have multiple crews doing an apartment a day. And so it's just unit economics
Mhm.
stacked on top of each other. And that's the biggest differences.
So would you say within the market, why do you feel like there's more apartment buildings being made in terms of, well, in comparison to houses? Why do you think that? Because, decades ago, everyone was just building houses and then that's what everybody was working towards, buying a house. But now we're much in a society, like you said, majority of the world are renters. So why do you feel like more people are comfortable renting? And why do you think there's a lot more demand for apartments?
I think it comes down to life, quality of life, and convenience. And here's what I mean. You said it well, like decades ago, and people still build houses today, and they will always build houses. But when you look at the building permits for new houses versus apartment builds, there's definitely an inflection going on. More and more people are renting, and I think the main difference is, one, it's tough to be able to afford a house. Even if you have all your ducks in a row, you have a good job, unless you have a dual income or you have years and years and years of saving, so to say, it might take you a decade or 2 decades to save up enough just for the down payment on some of these things, depending on your situation. And people need to live now. Like they don't want to wait and live at home till they're 40 and then figure out what's going
Mhm.
on. Whereas on the apartment side, It's accessible, it's walkable, it's community, it's all of those things all at once, and it's not an overly committed approach. And there's not a massive down payment. You don't need to make a massive mortgage payment every single month. You don't need to do the repairs, the landscaping. And I understand the argument on both sides. People saying like, yeah, but you're building equity on one and like it'll pay off long term. And the other one is, like burning money. And, there's things that you can do on the back end, have the rent and an LLC for a write off or things like that. But really it just comes down to quality of life and convenience. There's a good argument to be made around owning. And there's a good argument to be made around renting to where you're free. You're flexible and it's realistic. And there's people, you can move to those things today versus waiting years and years and years or decades to own. And all those things said, like, so you kind of have these life characteristics and wants and desires. Then you have like the economy and how hard it is to be able to qualify for a mortgage, unless X, Y, and Z lines up. Then you have the other factors and the other economic factors. Like if you look at it, like most people want to live by downtowns, or within a radius. Well, you can't buy a 4-acre lot in a downtown city anymore. Like if you do, it's just spending millions of dollars. And the reality of it is just the value of a dollar doesn't go as far today. And so many people rent because of that. But also, even if dollars were the same, I still think that people want to plug in at the end of the day. It's their space. They're not confined there. And it kind of matches the gig economy today, or how like remote work happens, or how people like to travel and be flexible and free. If I'm in a city and I know I'm going to be there on a work assignment for a year, I'm just going to rent, and that way I'm not tied down. I don't need to plan my whole life around that one commitment. So there's a lot of reasons why I think people like that flexibility, and just because of affordability and a few other factors, but also the amenities, the perks, the community, the walkability, everything else you get with apartments in the right spots. It's just really hard to beat that.
Mhm. So you have several businesses, like, TurnServe isn't just one of them.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about your other businesses and how do you find that work-life balance,
Yeah. So it ebbs and flows. I'll say that much.
Mm-hmm.
So one, I'm big on work-life integration. Like I've been an entrepreneur since as long as I can remember. I have a significant other at home. We have 3 kids together, and when I'm home, I'm full-time dad, like I'm there. But there's also times to where, I have my head down and I have work matters I have to attend to, and that's just how it goes. I told my partner early on, I say, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to work a lot in bursts. I'm going to have a lot of flexibility and freedom in other times, but this is who I am. And it's not, I can't imagine a life of working like 8 to 5, 5 days a week, enjoy 1 day a weekend, and then, go to church and whatever else it is, and then repeat. Like I like action and making an impact and doing creative things. And sometimes that means that there might be a day to where I just have my head down working on something because I think it's going to make an impact. Then there's other days at home to where I might not have anything to do for 3 days and things are going smooth and steady. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to spend some more time because I have a window now. So I think it goes back to like how the world is evolving a little bit. Yes, corporate America is always going to be there. There's always going to be like common routines and whatnot. But I think the workday is evolving. I think many more employers are looking at impact made versus hours worked. And I think that that's changing kind of some of these approaches. You look at education and everything else, like education's important, but I think it's evolving, like online school or like hybrid school or what have you. So where I'm going with all this is I really think that the world's evolving, and therefore like the workers or the entrepreneurs are kind of like evolving with it as well. And for me, like the businesses that I start and that I'm a part of, the things that I could add value in, like I'm all for learning new things and trying new things. I do that quite a lot, to be honest with you. But all of my companies, I call it a strategy of being within arm's reach. So normally you tell somebody like, hey, I started 4 companies in the past 4 years. And they're like, well, you're crazy. Like, why would you do that? Like that must be all pretty bad. Well, our approach is, because all of my stuff is around, empowering or enabling home services or multifamily or things associated with that space. I already have the clients. I already have the team and the frameworks, and I know the industry probably better than anybody else. And I'm able to come in. I'm already in the rooms. Like I know the vendors there. I know the need. The clients ask us all the time, what can we do? And so instead of completely overhauling my business model, I say, hey, we'll try this out. I don't know if it's going to be successful, but we'll figure it out together. And I'll start a new subsidiary, and we'll try to make it meaningful, scalable, and competitive for the client. And so everything I do is just within arm's reach. And one quick story, just to bring that full circle, this is how I started Liquid Liner. We were painting a complex one day. I had my best crew there, and they had the crew said that they can't service it. And I said, no problem, get out of there. They said the same thing the second day, and I was like, that's very atypical. Like, what's going on? And they said there's a bad odor, bad smell. I go and check it out. Sure enough, there was somebody that was like spraying on refinishing, which means like they're making their tub look new without replacing it. And they're air movers and sprayers and a hazmat suit, all this stuff. And I'm like talking to the person that's doing the service afterwards, and I was like, "There's got to be a better way of doing this." And then there was there was a concept to do that, but there's not a product. We actually made our own product because of that. So that's where Liquid Liner was birthed from, is because there wasn't a good one on the market, so we made our own. But that's a good example of, I was already in the building, we were already painting there, and there was a big need or big opportunity to do something a little bit better or a little bit different. And because I saw it in my first business, I created a second business out of it under the same framework. So a buddy of mine told me that he refers to that as the edge strategy. You take your core competencies and whatever you run into, like that's kind of close but not too close, you could build businesses out of that. But I always just call it within arm's reach, things that hit my desk that I see every single day. I'm not learning a new industry every single time I start a new business. I'm not like, I don't need to gamble. I'm not going from multifamily or services or anything like that over to all of a sudden doing like a crypto fund or something like that. That'd be cool, but maybe a different life. But everything I do is just kind of in my wheelhouse. It's in my area of competency, so to say. So that really, when you've started a few businesses, people see the success and like, hey, you have 4 or 5, 6 businesses here. They don't really understand the trial and error that went into a lot of these. And it's every day. Like every day, we probably, if you're doing it right and pushing the envelope hard enough, you're probably failing 60 or 70% of the time, and you're really holding on to that 40 or 30% that works. And last thing I'll say is this, just to really make that relevant here. When we were launching Liquid Liner, for example, I'm not a chemist, but I'm really like resourceful, and I know how to connect people. And I essentially found a group that was going to help us build our own refinishing product. And we went through 70 iterations of the product before we came up and said, this is perfect, let's go. And most people probably would have stopped at 10, but because we kept on pushing that envelope and we knew that there had to be certain characteristics that fit for us in order to be successful, it took that many tries. And so we're not afraid to really fall on our faces sometimes. We hedge our bets and all those kind of things, but we know if you're innovating hard enough, if you're solving meaningful things, if you're not seeing elements of failure, you're operating within safety, you're not going to innovate anything. Like, you really have to be pushing that envelope to make serious change. And that's where we like to live. It's a little bit entrepreneurial. It's a little bit innovative, but a lot of it's around logic and practicality. And that's kind of where I like to live.
I love that. And that kind of moves on to the point that I was going to ask you as well, is that what kind of mindset do you feel like you need to have to be able to be in a position where you are? Because I think a lot of people are very aspirational about where they want to go, and like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to make money and I want to do this and that. And yes, obviously money's the end goal, but I think some people don't realize that, like, you need to have a good idea, but you need to have a good work ethic. You need to know how to be a people person. You need to know how to get the deals. So as somebody in your position, what advice would you give to somebody who is trying to get to where you are, you know?
I would say this, what whatever skill set or set point you have from a personality, or the things that keep you up at night, or the things that bring you confidence, that will evolve and change in this pursuit of entrepreneurialism, right? Like, you're going to learn so much about yourself, and you're not going to have any other option except to muscle through some things that you're very bad at. And so whatever pre-notion you have about yourself, that's good to know. And I'll kind of talk about characteristics here in a moment that may be beneficial, but it's going to change and evolve as you scale down this journey. And so I think the natural first thing for me is, I think one of the big ones that stick out to me is, I'm probably much more curious than the average person. And, you know, but curiosity on its own, it's almost like an idea. It's practically worth zero, and a lot of people struggle with that, especially early in their journeys. And it doesn't mean that, you came up with something bad or wrong, but the reality of it is, all of the value to anybody is around the impact that you make outward, and an idea in your head and nowhere else is meaningless. And so ideas are worth zero, and you really have to put things into reality for them to become real. And that's why you see VCs, venture capitalists or investors, they won't sign an NDA around a lot of ideas and whatnot because of that concept. So you need an element of curiosity. And then for me, it was just this element of, I don't want to do certain things and I don't want to be told to do certain things. And I have a competitive background. Like I played semi-pro football, and I played collegiate football, and I've been around sports my whole life. And if somebody tells me to do something a certain way just because, I'm like, I'm probably not going to do that way anymore. And there's a fine line, don't get me wrong, like between being rebellious and being like, just having some extra motivation behind you. But I really think that if you start off with curiosity, and I think the biggest thing that somebody could do for themselves is doing it for others. And here's what I mean. Like obviously everyone, I don't want to speak for everybody, maybe not, but most people I know in this space, they are in it because they want to make an abundance of money. And what does money bring you? It brings you safety and time, right? We all probably calculate bills the same way, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, like whatever it might be. And we always, anytime that we're between things or money's tight, we're like, I just got to make it X amount of time and then I'll get this money in. So we always weigh it and measure it in terms of time. And I think all of us on this entrepreneurial journey, we value it the same way. Like, okay, I want to work less time. I want to make more money so I have more time to, like for certainty and security and all this kind of things. And I think that element kind of just gets lost sometimes in people. Like most people start off, they have an idea and they're very cautious, or maybe they've never done anything like it. Maybe they have somebody that starts off and they say, don't do that. For me, I'm not saying this is the best approach. I've always been a little bit too much cowboy. What I mean by that is, I see an idea and I just do it. Like I'm like, hey, like I know how to fail successfully. Like I know how to pick up. I'll prevail. Whereas somebody that's first starting off, they might need to spend a little bit more time planning and what have you, but not to get lost there.
Okay.
So all those things said, natural curiosity, just a lot of vigor, so to say, like, and just somebody that wants to push the envelope and doesn't stop when they feel pain. Like, it's not if you're going to feel resistance or be uncomfortable, it's when. And every single day, if you are pushing the envelope, like I today I have private equity investors and all these other investors. I have never once said to myself in the mirror, like, today I want to be the best CFO possible, and I want to know how to run financial reports and do all these things, but I have to, like I have to do those kind of things. And I never once said, hey, I want to be CEO that has a whole board and do all these kind of things. That wasn't my natural set point, but I have to. And so you kind of learn yourself as you go in those moments, to where like that deep despair sometimes you feel like in your stomach, or the element of fear, or that like your body can like doesn't like it, and that might show you that, and like with anxiety or tenseness or whatever it might be. You really got to remember why you're doing what you're doing. And so being super calculated on why you do what you do, and knowing that you're going to have to know that as well, just to make sure that you keep the journey going. Because there's going to be times, no matter how successful you think you are, there's going to be times that you really question yourself, and you might call a friend, a family member, and say, hey, I'm done with this. I'm out of here. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you had a bad day, and like they talk you back into it. But you're going to learn a lot about yourself in this journey. But it really takes somebody that's either just kind of at their wit's end with like doing something a certain way, and they're just tired of being a certain way. They're like, hey, this is not for me. Like, corporate America, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do this. Or somebody that's naturally curious, but also somebody that makes an impact. Somebody that's not afraid to push it and be wrong a million times to be right once. Somebody that's willing to play long ball and look dumb in the short term in order to be successful long term. All those things said, like that, I don't think there's one mold, but there's a lot that goes into it. But you're going to learn a lot about yourself in this journey.
And that kind of goes on to my next point. How important do you think it is to have risk factor when being a business owner, because I think sometimes people don't realize that you have to be afraid. No, you can't be afraid to fail. Sorry. Like you can't be afraid. Like you have to, it's scary and you don't want it to fail, but then you need to learn from those lessons. I've failed multiple times in my career, but I've learned so much from it and I've been able to grow from it. So for you running all your businesses and actually even like I said before, like doing a slight pivot in your career, it still was in the same realm, but you decided to focus on something more. That's still essentially a risk factor because you didn't have experience in that. You had to kind of, in some cases, start from the ground up and learn new skills and learn more about the industry that you knew so well. So, how important for you is risk factor?
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider, and it gets harder the older you get. Mostly, normally people have commitments, they have liabilities, they have a house
Mhm.
payment, they might have kids, they might have parents that they have to take care of. Like, I don't think time is in anyone's favor in this journey, and I think what that does is sometimes it motivates us to move and jump into things quickly. So being conscious of risk. So one, feeling that feeling that comes with it sometimes, that uncertainty, the stress, anxiety, whatever you feel, that's your natural's body way of telling you like, hey, I don't feel great about this, are you sure? Like it's making you like prepared, so to say. It's just like releasing the
Mhm.
hormones so that you stop and really like take a second because it thinks that you're going to be in fight or flight because you are. But for risk, for me, it was one of those things to where I kind of knew long term, like when I was young, I knew long term there's no possible way I'm gonna, pursue a gold jacket one day, like work 40
Mhm.
years for somebody and call it good. There's just no way. And so I kind of had this like this this preface, or I teed this up in a way like going into it. I always knew I was going to jump and do something else, like I kind of knew it. But I do think too, like sometimes the reason is compelling enough, even if you're not a natural risk taker, and that's okay. Like look, I wish I had more of like the structure in me to like be a little bit more conservative and like not so on the edge all the time. I wish I had that in me, but my natural set point's closer to the edge with a big fall off, you know what I mean? Versus the edge of balance. And there's people that are very methodical and they won't ever take a risk. And that's fine. If that's what they want to do with their lives, amazing. But for me, but I would argue that in the sense of if they're only doing that to avoid fear, like that, you're kind of limiting yourself. You're probably capable way more than you think, and you're definitely more capable than what your circle tells you about yourself at that time. You know what I mean? And so risk is definitely something to look at. Obviously, financial risk, you really have to weigh it. You really have to be thorough and understand, like, hey, is the juice worth the squeeze here? Sometimes it's a self-fulfilled thing that you're chasing, and you want to get your curiosity out and make an impact in the world. And other times you want to get to a point to where you're affluent enough to where your kids no longer have to work and whatnot. So really just gauging that. I think everyone's situation is different. If your house is paid for, you have a home to live in or whatever it might be, you might be able to get a little bit more risky versus somebody like me when I started off, I was early 20s. I depleted my 401k from corporate America. I went all in. I went from paying myself, or I'm sorry, I went from making multiple six figures a year to making 20 some $1,000 my first year. And
Mhm.
most people would look at that and they told me like, hey dude, that's pretty stupid of you. Like, why would you do that? And it's like, I don't know. Like I kind of believe you, but like, I believe myself. So
Yeah.
it's having more than a prayer. It's having a plan, but it's also understanding your why. If you stay
Mhm.
true to your why and your purpose, I really think that everything will take care of itself. You will lose some definitely, but I think that'll reroute you to where you should go. You will win and that'll pull you in a natural direction. But if you stay true to that, I think that's a really good gauge to offset that risk sometimes.
hmm And you touched a bit on, that you have a lot of private equity investors. And, a lot of the time when you're in several different industries, people always say to you, investors are the best way to get to where you want to be. But it's hard to get investors. And so how do you use your skill set to get investors? Like how are you able to get them to invest in your company? And a lot of people get a little bit nervous about, okay, the return on investment, they're gonna owe loads of people money, and people invest in companies because they want to make money and make more back from what they gave into it. So tell us a bit about that. Like how do you get private equity investors?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is like my approach and my encouragement, especially like if it's not like a real estate where you're getting investors to buy a property or something, if you have a business, especially if you have a service-based business, and especially if you have a software business, most people think investment first, then we'll figure it out. My encouragement is figure it out within reason first and then show that traction to investors. Almost no one will give you blind dollars, so to say. And what I mean by that is here's my idea, here's my business plan, go. Look, unless you have skin in the game, like unless you show some sort of traction, you don't need to be doing $1 million a year, but you need to show that your model works. If you could make $10 and you have a path to make $1 million, that works, like that's fine. So what investors, the first thing you need to ask an investor is this, unless you get like one of these like YCs or whoever it might be to invest in a pre-seed startup with no money or what have you, like it's different. But the first thing you should ask yourself is, transcend spots with that investor. What did they look for? What did they get nervous about? What did they lose sleep at night over? Like if they have other investors or LPs that they have to give reports to, what things do they need to cure for them? Like, do they need a cash on cash return? Is it long ball? Do they need quarterly K1 distributions? Really trading places with that person you're talking to, not doing it from a sense of like, you're an investor, I need money, go. Being naturally curious and caring about what they may or may not need and understanding that will take you much further. I went down the rabbit hole early on in my career of like anybody that I could talk to that had something to do with money. I was just straight pitching them like, here's what I'm doing down the list. And then
Mm-hmm.
like you get told no and you get feedback enough to where you start realizing like, I should probably make sure that my business and my plan and everything else is as good as it can be at this phase. And I should be able to ask that other investor of what did they look for in situations like, how do they hedge their bets and whatnot. And then you have to have a model that shows that working capital, in addition to what you already have built, will bring in greater returns. And I think a lot of people think like or forget the fact there's a lot of viable business models out there. There's a lot of viable things that you can do to make money. There's not a lot of viable things for private equity to invest in that's going to get them the returns that they need. And so that doesn't mean that your business idea is bad or your solo shop is bad, but knowing the difference between having an investable company and one that is just good and makes you money is good to know, because no one is going to invest in you to make like 9% cash return on their money. Like
Mm-hmm.
anybody that takes a bet on anybody, unless you get traditional lending or something like that, they want the story and the traction and the outcome to be 10, 20, 50, 100 times their money invested. And that's when it's fun for them, but also fits their pro forma a lot of the time. So, you don't need to be an expert at finance, but you need to be familiar. You don't need to be a savvy world-class CEO, but you need to be passionate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the biggest thing is you need to be very self-aware of your isms. And we all have them. What are we good at? What are we bad at? And
Mm-hmm.
if you go into this, if I said, hey, like I'm great at everything, give me your money, you'd be like, no thanks, man. But if I'm like, hey, like, here's my skill set. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
more so on the operational and the creativity side. I have a fractional CFO to handle the finance side because I'm not well versed on that, but I know it enough. The person you're saying that to, they're like, oh, okay, cool. This guy has some self-awareness. Like we can talk to him versus like the arrogant, like I'm the best ever. Let's go. The hoorahs. That doesn't get you far. So being self-aware and being able to be honest, most people try to sell the concept of like, look how good I already am. And that
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to say, look how good that we can be based on our early stats or early failures, whatever it might be. Just being authentic and understanding what the other person needs in that dynamic will get you much further than the best pitch deck versus the best, like, you get somebody to help pitch your idea, the best connection. Those things are just top of the funnel things. We like everything else that's middle to the bottom of the funnel in a good way. Those
Yeah.
are things that speak to you as a person versus your idea or anything else like that.
Okay. So I've got a scenario that I want to throw out there to you. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say, okay, I have my own apartment building, right? Over here in London, right? And I reach out to you and I say, look, okay, I have this prime location. It's an up and coming area, okay? And I want this, I would say I want this building to have a gym, a co-working space area. I want there to be, and also a bar, and I want it to have at least, I'd say, 40 floors of apartments. Okay. And you don't really know the infrastructure, let's say, of London and how it works and stuff like that. So how would how would you go about that? What would you do in this situation? Because obviously, international, this could be great. International clients, building more clients internationally in London. It's a big city. How would you handle that kind of um, offer? And what would the turnover be? Let's say if I say to you that I want to get it done in like 6 months.
Yeah.
How would you manage that?
So just some clarity things here. So you're saying
Uh-huh.
if you found that deal in London,
Uh-huh.
and are you saying
Yeah.
me being here in the US, like what I would ask, or transparent?
Yeah.
Got it. So
Uh-huh.
it really depends. I'll preface and then I'll kind of get into that. So
Uh-huh.
a lot of the times in deals that I am involved in,
Uh-huh.
I don't know another more blunt way to say this. I intentionally I try not to be the smartest guy in the room. And here's what I mean. All these things, like if it's something that's newer for me, if it's something that I'm familiar but I'm not super comfortable yet with, like whatever it
Uh-huh.
might be, the first thing I almost always do is cross check my own biases and assumptions. I talk to somebody that's way smarter than I am, that's done it or been a part of it. And in the apartment world, like in your scenario, I would
Uh-huh.
probably say that's something where you should probably look at a sponsor, right? Somebody that's kind of gone through that route before. Now on my side, some things if it, let's say like the other side of the street, let's say it was a deal that you were analyzing and I was looking at it with you, so to say. Obviously, you look at all the unit economics and the cash flow and all those kind of things, right? And try to analyze like, all right, if it's an investment deal, here's what I need. You got to know your goal, then you just work backwards. So you look at, all right, what sort of value add could I add here? At the end of the day, everything that you do or don't do in that building, it's going to influence how much money is paid every single month. And that's really,
Uh-huh.
people can't lose sight of that because that's where it's at. Those value add renovations, spending $10 million in a complex, your whole
Uh-huh.
goal is just to improve the rent roll and get rents
Yeah.
higher and what have you. So knowing the investment dollars and the finance side, super important on on that front. But again, I go back to how I normally do things. I probably every single situation I've gotten into with deals, structure, you name it, I have always leaned on people that have either done it or are doing it, somebody that I want to do life with, or an attorney that knows their stuff. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and the last thing I'll say is this: there's people that are kind of conflicted on this whole thing. Um, I don't mind breaking bread with people. I don't mind splitting things up. I don't mind partnering with somebody. I don't mind,
Uh-huh.
like all of my managers have equity in my company, by the way. Like, and there's some people that say, "Oh my god, I can't believe you do that," but they don't like. I don't think it's. I think it's way more beneficial to have somebody that's in unison with you, or somebody that's smarter than you, or more familiar with certain things than you, and partnering with them and getting a piece of something big versus owning all of something small. And so it really just depends on the specifics and the dynamic. If I'm outgunned, I'm
Uh-huh.
phoning a friend all day long.
Okay. I love that. So if you, let's say you're phoning a friend and you are collaborating with a company to, let's say, flip all of these apartments within this 40-story apartment building in London, like what would be the first step? Like what would you do?
Got it. So the first thing we would do is, if it was just the traditional service, the first thing I would ask them is, "How are you guys currently doing things?" You know, like,
Uh-huh.
and I would, and that they would tell me like, "Oh, I use this vendor here. I have this contact here. Here's what we're doing." And I'd say, "Cool. What are the results like? Like, how long? Like, is it like, your numbers low?" Like, I would find out as much as I could around it. And while I'm doing that discovery, I would be kind of like cross referencing what they're currently getting versus what I would be able to bring to the table. If I'm able to offer them something and it brings better results, I can improve things. If they're flipping their units it's currently in 21 days, and I say, "Hey, we're going to do it in 2 days each unit," like that's a huge difference. And that's a lot of savings. If we could do better quality service and their asset appreciation goes up and their long-term equity value goes up by 5%, doesn't sound like much, but 5% of $20 million is a lot of money. So I would get a thorough understanding of how they're currently doing things and their struggles. That'd be the first thing I do. And then I would look at what I'm able to provide. Okay, what sort of articulable benefit could I give them by working with me? And then
Uh-huh.
once you have those things, then it's just selling that vision and making sure that your offering is valuable enough and impactful enough to where it might be the most expensive offer that's on the street or option on the street, but the value brought it's going to pay for itself. And so I always try to analyze and make sure that we could be a good partner with somebody, or I could be a good benefit to somebody somebody is knowing what they're currently doing and what I'm able to do. Then last thing, I'll always find out their goals. If they say, "Hey, I don't really want this to go, like I don't need to spend a ton of money, I just need a band-aid here, etc." That might be something where we like, "Hey, like we'll refer you to somebody, but we don't want to do like a splash job, so to say, like, my
Yeah.
name's on that. I don't want to do that." And so really just understanding their goals is probably another piece of that. But a lot of discovery, and then
Mhm.
using that discovery. If they say, I don't get my current vendors don't communicate well with me and the price is okay, but I know right away, like, oh, our communication methods are important. That's going to be in the line item one on my
Mhm.
proposal about the benefits of us. So just hearing and going through discovery and then selling the benefit of what they're looking for, but also making sure that you can fulfill on that that's very important.
Nice. I love that. And is your well, have you done any stuff internationally, or is your goal to kind of
Now
do more stuff internationally?
it's all been US based so far.
Mhm.
We have suppliers from across the globe. Um,
Mhm.
I think to answer your question, I would absolutely love to do stuff
Mhm.
internationally or in other countries or what have you. US is big and it's fast.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of players doing this, and so our
Mhm.
market opportunity here is massive. But
Right.
I also know that there's other places that
Mhm.
would benefit from what we do so much, and those
Mhm.
markets are huge, like
Yeah.
incredibly huge. And so
Mhm.
if there's any partners that want to talk about opening up a turn surf shop somewhere else, let me know. Like I will seriously talk to you. So
Nice, nice. I love that. So I want to I'm wrapping up soon, but I was thinking that, let's say there's like a young woman or a young boy who wants to intern for your company, intern for you. What would you say to them is needed in terms of the skills that they need to have to be able to intern at your company and to be able to work up? Like, what would you say is needed?
I think we might be a little bit atypical. Like there's definitely some hard and soft skills that somebody should
Mm-hmm.
generally have, right? But we don't really hire experts, so to say. Like the team members that we bring on, they fit our core values and our culture more than anything else. We teach them what they need to know. So to answer your question, the person that comes to me and they want to intern, the person that is the most honest with me is the one I'm going to trust the most and probably give that to. And here's what I mean. I'm not saying that you shouldn't vouch for yourself or sell on strength and whatnot. I'm not saying I go to anybody and like, here's the worst things about me, go. But it's very easy to pick up on things if somebody's outselling or they're over their skis, as they say.
Right.
And I ask them a couple questions and I know right away, like like yeah, you like it's not that they didn't know, it's that they pretended to know. Like that's the issue. So I think the best thing somebody could be with me is one, non-assumptuous. Well, here's a good example. Just be more curious. Like ask me questions before telling me an opinion on how I do things. Like and it doesn't mean that I need to be right or wrong. It needs that shows me that you're going to be inquisitive and inquire and try to understand before you project an opinion on something or somebody. And just that open-mindedness will take you places. I know that my mentors that I look up to, I know that people around me, friends in the space, coworkers, colleagues, you name it. I would say the number one thing that everyone hires for all the time, like it's never really like, oh, I was like second place in the national math contest or this or that.
Mhm.
Sure, those things are cool benefits. Like that's awesome. They need they need to be people that you could trust. Like, and if you're an authentic person and you're willing to say, I don't know anything about this, but here's my path to knowing. If you could be vulnerable in certain moments and not mask it and
Mhm.
view it as a weakness, you will go far. And every employer, myself included, partners, you name it, they will go to you 10 times out of 10 versus somebody that they don't trust that might have a Harvard degree or what you
Mhm.
name it. Like it doesn't matter. Um,
Mhm.
the culture side and trusting people is so important. I can't emphasize that enough. This being authentic, being curious, and being able to articulate and have meaningful disagreements and meaningful agreements and just be authentic with one another will take you
Mhm.
further than anything else.
I love that. That's really good. That's really good because I think, especially me working in the creative industry, it's not like that. They already want you to have the experience. And it's like, well, how can we get experience without getting the job? Because that's how we learn on the job. So
Yeah.
I really like that. And that's really, really important. So, Tyler, what is next for you? What have you got coming up? Or, I'd love to hear what's your 2026 looking like?
Busy and good. And, like, so for us, it's been a compounding effort, right? We're going into a big year. We laid a lot of foundation, this in 2025, like new SOPs, new service lines. We've acquired some companies. Like we are doing some marketing, efforts. We have a cool software coming out. It's going to be the best thing around.
Okay.
But everything that we're doing, it's to bring quality of life to our customers, and that's really going to showcase itself in 2026. So we're scaling cities. I'm adding software. We build our own AI, to integrate in our systems, and it's just a
Uh-huh.
lot of partnerships at scale. A lot of top down partnerships. It's a business side. Personal side, just be there for my sons, go on more adventures, be more present. So it's
Uh-huh.
crazy. My work life is some people would call it chaotic. I just call it normal. Like I like it. It's good for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
But my home life, so I live on a farm and it's
Oh
still
wow.
like there's
Yeah,
coyotes
yeah,
in the
yeah.
back, there's chickens, like, and there's
Yeah.
nothing but corn around us.
Mm-hmm.
And I have bonfires like no other. And so it's a lot of good balance for me. And I want to do that a
Uh-huh.
lot more in next year. So I'm going to go fishing this fall with my sons. I'm looking forward to
Lovely.
that. Have holiday
Yeah.
season, obviously, and
Yes,
then
yes.
26, it's going to be about being methodical, not
Uh-huh.
overwhelmed, and just being steady and taking care of the people that are around me on the business side and my personal side. Like that's my goal in 26.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. It's been great getting to know you and hearing all about you. So, where can people find you and find your company and just be able to reach out to you and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I do ask if you send me a request, just say, "Hey, I heard you on this podcast." That way, I know like to accept it. I
Yeah.
probably get 20 to 30 requests a day. So
Okay.
if you send me a message on there, make sure you mention like, "Hey, I saw you here, saw you there." Like that'd be great. So LinkedIn, just Tyler Dunnigan on LinkedIn. Turnserve.com is my company's, and I'm also, if you just search for me, I'm on Instagram and a few others too. So social butterfly, send smoke signals, I'll find you.
Amazing. Well, as I said, it was been great speaking to you and just knowing more about you. Thanks for coming on the show. It's great to connect
Of course.
as well.
Thanks for having me. This has been so fun. Thank you for having me. I really
Yes,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. You're welcome. Well, thanks guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and learned a lot. As usual, you can follow me all of my user socials. You know them. There's a bunch of them. Stay tuned for new episodes coming soon.